Hello, my name is Rob Garner. I'm a computer programming instructor, and today I'm going to demonstrate how to use master pages in a web form application. So we're going to create a new website. And it will be a web application, which we're going to call Master Page Demo. I'm going to use an empty web form application. And let's add a new item to project. And we're going to add a master page. So this will be under web forms, master page, and we'll just call it master page.master. Sometimes people will call it site.master. And you'll notice that the master page looks very much like a normal ASPX page. The primary difference is we have this content placeholder, or these content placeholders, and you'll see them located in two locations right now. One is in the head block of our HTML code. The second place is in a div inside of the body and inside the form tags. And you can add as many of these as you want. In fact, we're going to add 2 of them, but we're going to make this page look like something. So let's do this. And what we've done is we've made a page with basically a header. It says My Company Homepage up here, and then 2 content placeholders for inside of a table and one at the top. We can kind of see what it looks like in the design view. So this will allow us to demo using these content placeholders. So the next thing is this master page really isn't a page. If you try to view this right now, it wouldn't really do anything. You would get this forbidden. It can't really, the web server really can't display a master page per se. What this is used as a template essentially, or a base for another page. And in a sense, what a master page is a HTML equivalent of, maybe you might think of it as inheritance, but and it kind of fixes that problem where, let's say we wanted to make a template that would be used for multiple pages, and so we can use this master page to inherit from, essentially, in an HTML sense. So I'm going to close this, and then we can create a we're going to create a page, a content page from this master page. And so I will add new item, and here you have web forms, which we used before to make just a regular web form. If you use web form from master page, it will allow you to make a content page essentially from that master page. So we're going to call this content page demo, and it'll ask you which master page you want to use. We only have one, so we'll select it, and you'll notice that you don't get all of the code you normally get in a normal web form. I'll add one just so we can compare the two. And here's our content page on the right and a regular web form on the left. And what you'll notice is that we have this master file attribute at the top of the page in our page directive, which points to the master page we're using. The rest of these are pretty much the same. And then we don't have doc type or any of the material that's at the top of our page normally, and including the form tags, because we are going to inherit that from the master page. So that's already in our master page, and basically we're just putting in the content we want to go in there. And in order to do that, we have these content areas. And so in content area 1, I'll close this up now. So in content area 1, I'm going to bring in a button. And we'll also bring in a text box. And a label. So we have a label, a button, a text box. So we have a label, a text box, and a button. And we're going to write a event for our button. And all it'll do is it'll say label.welcome is equal to welcome plus whatever is in the text property of that text box. So let's see. We have form, and then in this one, I think I'm just going to drag in an image. And if we look at the source, it creates an image, and we'll create a folder for our images. And I'm just going to drag an image from my computer into here, and we'll throw that in here. And so we have this image. And so we have our two content areas filled. And let's see what we have so far. We'll use Control F5. And looks like we are missing a form tag. So let's look at our master page. We have our form, and yes, in fact, we do need down here /form tag. We'll save that and see if that fixed it. And it appears that it has. So you can see our page is made from our master page. The two content areas have been filled from the images, or from the code that we put in the content areas. And we can see that our code here works. So this is a good way to standardize the look of your page. Obviously, you would probably want to make your master page more conform to what a typical website might look like today. But this demonstrates basically how a master page works. The nice thing about using master pages is that you can reuse. If you need to change the overall look and feel of your website, you just change the master page and the whole site should update. Now, right now, the way we have associated our page with the master page is through the page directive and this master file attribute. You can actually set the default the default master page for all of your pages by setting in the system.web section of your web config file. Just say pages, and in here essentially you can set the defaults for all these attributes on your page. And we're going to set master page file equals, and I'll just copy it from here. I can delete it from there and I can put it in this pages directive. And now we don't have that attribute anymore. Let's see if it still works. And in fact, we need to make this lowercase in the web config. And now it works again. So we can use, by putting a pages directive and setting the master page attribute, that creates the default for all pages, which means that you don't have to set that in every single content page. So let's add another master page. And we're going to call this one subset.master. And we're just going to add an H1 tag that we're going to say subset master so we can tell which one we're on. And we're going to add a folder. And let's say we had a series of pages that we're going to place in this subset, and we wanted them to use the subset master. What we can do is in our web config, inside of configuration, you can set another set of attributes which are going to be associated with that folder we just created. And so you see we set a path for a location, which is subset demo. And in our web config, what this means is anything within these tags applies only to that folder. So in this way, in the root folder, you have all of these attributes which apply to the entire site. But then inside of this location tag we just added, we're going to add, and we're going to see, we're going to add a system.web attribute, which mirrors this one that's at the root level. But will only, these are system.web settings that will only apply to this location. And then we're going to set the master page file attribute equal to this directory. And in here we'll add a new item, and it will be a web form with master page. We will call it subset form. And we shouldn't need this attribute. And just to show that we're actually doing something with this, we'll just put some text in here. And it looks like we misspelled. There we go. Ah. And we need this to be subset demo dot master. And capital M. So there we go. We can see that we are using the subset master page. We have content 1 and content 2. Let's look at our master page and see what it looks like. I'll make two, I don't have two content areas, so that kind of confused this. And your content placeholder IDs, of course, that's actually what specifies which content area you have here. So here we have content placeholder 1. And that's more what we were looking for. So what we were able to do then is create a web config. We added a location attribute. We set the system web tag for this folder, which is the location folder that we picked, and then we set the master page attribute for that folder equal to this subset master. So we have two master pages, but this one only applies by default to the subset demo directory. And we also learned that we can make a folder and set attributes specifically to that folder, and that the root folder of the configuration file applies to everything. Going back to our original master page, we have the title here, and we can change. Well, let's set the title in our master page. And we'll go back to our content page demo and view it. And notice that that title shows up here at the top. We can't quite see the whole thing because these tabs are too small. Now we can see it. So you can set the title attribute in the master page just like you can with a regular HTML page. Notice that at the top of our page director for our content page, we have a title block, and we're going to change that to content page demo title. And we'll run that. And if we set the title attribute of the page directive, that will override what we had in the master page title. So that's a way of customizing what your page title is and making it different from the master page title. You can also do this in the code behind. So I'm going to view code, and here in the page load, I'm going to say master.page, and notice that we can get access to the master page in the code behind. So if I click the dot, all the attributes of the master page or properties of the master page are available here. And I'm going to take the page dot title attribute and set it to page title from code behind. And we'll view this page again. and now it comes from the code behind. So that overrode the page title from the page directive and also from the master page. And a lot of this has to do with the life cycle events of a web form. If you look up life cycle events for a web page, Microsoft has documentation on it, and it's important for web forms that you are familiar with how these life cycle events happen. And they all happen in this specific order as shown on this chart. And if the master page is going to raise its render method before your content page, and then the last thing in the content, and then the events in the content page will be executed after the load event. So when we override the page load, that will be executed last of all the rendering and loading methods that occur to generate this page. And for that reason, this one overrides all of them. The content page load overrides the master page, and since the master page is done before either of those, that's the one with the least priority. So it really has more to do with when these pages are generated by the server. And one way to think about it is really all of these, the master page, the content page, and the code behind, what they're really doing are generating a stream of text that builds your HTML. And so as the code goes down through here, builds the page, and then when it goes to the content to get each of the elements that fits into that master page, and then executes all of the page load events, those stack on top of each other and drive what actually gets generated as the final product. So in the master page, let's try this. Let's go to just below the H1 tag. And I'll bring in a label here. And in the master pages page load, notice that the master page has a code behind page just like every other page, and you can write code in here. And so I will check to see if the page is a postback, and if it's not a postback, which is a very common thing to do with web forms, is to check if the page is a postback. If it's not a postback, this means it's the first time we are accessing the page, or that the user is accessing this page. And the system class has a GUID class, or the system namespace has a GUID class, which has a new GUID method. And this is very useful. A GUID is just a very unique ID. It's basically a random number that we can use to uniquely identify something. And so this is just kind of a helper class which will generate these GUIDs for us. And we're going to generate it, convert it to a string, and just set it into that label. if I were to run this, what you would see is now we have this GUID that was generated. So I'm going to go to my content page and we'll put it in here in content area 1, perhaps. And I'll bring another label in here, and so we have this other label. And maybe we won't put this in the content. We'll just put it up. Well, no, we need it in the content area. Oh, we don't want it in the head block. We want it in one of these. So we'll just put it right here. So there it is. And we have that label. Now what we want to do is go to the code behind for this content page, and in the page, and then we're going to override something called the page load complete method. So protected void, or we're and so what we want to do is we want to get something from the master page, but it's not. So the question then becomes, how do I get access to this label which is on the master page from the content page? Well, the way we can do that is we can use this reference to the master page and use the find control method. And if you pass in the ID from the control on the master page, you can access it from the content page. And so I'm going to get this control. I'm going to cast it to a label, because find control returns an object. And then we're going to use the text property from that. So if you're wondering what's happening here, this would be the same as doing this. And maybe that's a little easier to understand. All we did before is we just did this piece of code, resolved how to execute first by So that would be the equivalent of this, for example. We can't do that because label doesn't, we're not looking for the labels text property, we're looking for the entire result of this find control as label. We use the parentheses to force order of operations, so that gets resolved first, and then we get the text property from the overall label. So both of these pieces of code do the same thing. But as you can see, we can use the master page attribute or property of this page, use its find control method to get a control on the master page, and then we can just simply access its attributes. So we can actually get access to all the objects that are on the master page from the content page by using this approach. Now, one important thing is for that to work, you have to make sure that your content page properly identifies which master page it is. And since we set that in the web config, really we have to have this attribute properly set so that it can get the things that are in that master page. So let's see if that works. And in point of fact, you see these GUIDs match, and so the content page is able to read things on the master page. Another thing that we could do is in our master page, and its code behind, we could create a property. So let's create a property, and we're going to have a string, and so we have this property now, and in our master page itself, for the heading, we're going to change this and just data bind to that property. Remember, when we data bind, all it does is it just evaluates its expression. That's page heading title, which in this case is just a call to the get method of this property. And if we look at the content page, we can see now we're getting that title from that property. Now, if we were wanting to override that for some reason from our content page, we could do this. Since we have a reference to the master page with this master attribute, you'll notice that that property we just added And we have red squiggles here. So it says it doesn't have, master page doesn't have this page heading title, but we know it's there. And what we have to do in order to be able to get that, master pages don't have this property that we added normally. And when we look at this master page, it's of type master page, which is the base class for the master page. What we need to do is reference it to our master page. And the way we can do that is go to our content page and add a master type attribute with a virtual path attribute which points to our master page. If we go back here, now we can see that page heading title is available to us because we've remapped it to the correct virtual path for it to recognize that class or that property. We'll run this. And then we can see that now the title is in fact being pulled from the content page. Another thing we can do with our master page is we can set default content. And so I'm going to take from my content page, I'm going to take this image that we have here, remove it from the content page and put it in the master page inside of this second content placeholder. What this does is sets this as the default it sets it in the default content placeholder. And if I go back right now to my content page and I run this, I no longer have that image there. You know, before it looked like this, and now it looks like that. You can see that this whole table section is empty. The somewhat non-intuitive thing is a content page. If you want to use the default content, what you have to do is just delete the content area that you want to use default. So if I want this to be the default, I delete that content area, and then when I run it, it now uses the default content in the master page here. So you can set default content in your master page, and if you have a content area in the content page, it will use the content area. If it doesn't have that content area, it'll just go revert back to what the master page has in it and use that as its default. Another thing we can do is we can actually nest our master pages. So I'm going to add a new master page. And I'm going to call this one writers main.master. And we'll set the title to Reuters. And in our form for this page, we'll bring in a label. We'll set its ID to, or we'll leave the ID the same, that's fine. So we have this main master page, and then what we're going to do is, well, we need a content placeholder, so we'll add that in here. And so there's our master page. For our main one. Now we're going to add another master page. And I'm going to pick a nested one and call this one Reuters Europe. And it'll ask me what I want this master page to be. So there we are picking Reuters Main. And so now we have Reuters Europe, which is nested under Reuters Main. And you'll notice that while Reuters Europe is a master page, it looks like a content page. And that makes sense, because if you can only have all these, the doc type and the HTML attribute or tag and the head tag and the body and form tags in one page, if you're generating a web page. So the derived master pages need to have basically look like content pages. And you'll notice that we have content 1 and content 2. Which reflects what's in that top level page. And in this content area here, we'll add another label. And make this one say Reuters Europe. And I'm going to add another content area here. Another content placeholder. And we'll set its ID equal to content placeholder 1. Run at server. And if we look at the design view, you can see that everything that was in the main master page is there. And then we have Reuters Europe, which is a subset inside of that. And then now that we have those two pages, let me close out some of these. We're getting kind of busy. We can then take Reuters Europe and create a content page. And this new content page We'll just put in hello world in here. And you can see these are all nested together. We have the main master page, we have Reuters Europe, and then we have hello world. Kind of make it clearer, maybe what I'll do is this. So we have the main page, main master page, we have Reuters Europe master page, and then we have the content. So you can nest these all together and make your site and as complex as possible. Basically, what you're doing is you need to. And basically, what you're doing is this is a way of doing essentially inheritance in HTML. So we have a top level page we can make, then we can make another page that inherits from that, and then at the bottommost level we have the content page, which you inherit from all of those to generate what we need. So, and in a sense, you could actually, if you wrote all your pages so that they're generated with just code, you could just use regular inheritance. But because we are bridging with web forms, we're basically bridging this divide between HTML, which is a document format essentially, and code. As programmers, we need a way of inheriting our markup. And so master pages and sub-master pages provide the way to do that, to kind of approach that form of inheritance. So this completes my master page demo. Thank you very much.